Coming to the second part of the talk, mostly cases. I would deal with ASL applications in various subgroups, starting off with acute stroke. So in acute stroke, we need to get information regarding the parenchyma, the vessel, the core and the penumbra. Is there a mismatch? Is there an occlusion? Status of the collaterals. Can ASL help in all of these? Let's see. Starting off with the most basic form of a stroke patient, acute stroke, diffusion restriction, perfusion shows that there is no mismatch. That was straightforward. What about this patient? More subtle changes. We are not sure whether it's there. The clinical presentation was a right-sided weakness, so this is suspicious. But what about the ASL? Shows us a large area of perfusion deficit. Now, is it true hypoperfusion? That is another interesting thing to consider, because whenever there is a proximal vessel occlusion, the transit time is increased. Instead of getting tissue perfusion, we get signal within the arteries. This is either because of slow flow through an incomplete thrombosis or slow flow through collaterals. Either ways, the transit time in the involved downstream area is elevated or increased. And these are seen as something called arterial transit artifacts or ATAs. So what about the vessel status? In a straightforward MCA main trunk occlusion, much easier to identify. Again, very subtle changes in the left centrum semiovale on diffusion. MRA kind of looks okay, but closer inspection, we can see there is a lot of vessels on this side and a paucity here. SWA shows a focal blooming. It could be a thrombus sitting there. You can actually see on ASL that there is a perfusion deficit, there is a transit artifacts. The same collaterals can also be seen on FLAIR as hyperintense vessels. So this hypoperfusion often overestimates ASL as compared to a T2 star or other forms of perfusion, because it takes the core penumbra a little bit of benign oligemia as well. What about the opposite spectrum? This is a known subacute stroke, 4 days old, unstable plaque in the left carotid bifurcation. But what is happening on ASL? Why is an infarct showing elevator perfusion? The clue lies in the fact that there was a thrombus sitting there distal to it. So this could potentially be a case of distal migration of clot. It was initially lodged in the proximal M2, caused the infarct, migrated distally, and this could mean a futile recanalization with an elevated perfusion. This happened just today, and I wanted to show it because it's really interesting. Is there a significance for it? Hypoperfusion in acute stroke can often run the risk of hemorrhagic transformation. So the hemodynamic management should be kept accordingly. Looking at literature, it has been studied in hyperacute stroke. It is known that CPF predicts the outcome and ASL can measure the CPF. What should be the absolute threshold is a matter of conjunction. There are a lot of thresholds being kept. An example of less than 40% of contralateral side, an absolute measurement of less than 20, are certain things that have been available in literature. Since there is no standardization, in our institute, we still stick to qualitative methods. Looking at occlusion side, can we look at it? We saw a few patient examples, and it can be confirmed on DSA. What about the collaterals? This is very interesting. People have studied the presence of arterial transit artifacts. The term artifacts is a misnomer because it actually is helping us to actually look at the collateral status. And the studies have found that patients with hyperacute infarcts, with an vessel occlusion and arterial transit artifacts actually do better than those without the artifacts, which is logical because they actually represent the pile collaterals. So this example, where there is a vessel occlusion, complete a different case. So what about the cases where we have a CA pharynx? This patient had a stroke with a background history of CA pharynx. Diffusion showed multiple lesions. This was a patient with CA pharynx, showed multiple diffusion restriction foci. We were not sure whether there was any background metastasis as well. We went ahead and gave the contrast perfusion. This enabled us to compare ASL with T2 star perfusion. As we can see, there's a close correlation between CPF, MTT, and the ASL based perfusion. What about patients who undergo thrombectomies? Often show hyperperfusion post procedure, and they often are not of much significance because we've seen that some tend to bleed, some don't, and there's no statistical significance associated. Another case showing a post-recanalization. So what about patients who undergo thrombolysis? This was a patient who deteriorated post-thrombolysis, and as we can see, there is diffuse spasm. This patient also developed multiple hemorrhages and diffuse SAH. So similar to stroke, SAH can cause vasospasm and can show perfusion deficits in AS. SAH can also happen following traumas and other causes, and diffuse spasm can be related with the perfusion deficits. Coming to stroke mimics. How do we know whether a patient had a seizure or not? I mean, SAN mimics. Often the underlying clues might either be a TMI or incontinence. What about the imaging patterns? You get the gyriform diffusion restriction in such patterns, and often paradoxical increased perfusion as compared to a stroke, which shows reduced perfusion. These are non-territorial and they provide the clue to the diagnosis. This was a patient who came as a stroke mimic. We can clearly see there's a right focal lesion sitting there and focal hyperperfusion. This was another patient with stroke and seizures, and this showed a diffuse hyperperfusion in the right MCA territory. So these are other patients with diffuse hyperperfusion on ASL, came as a stroke mimic, and these are very easy to recognize on perfusion. Diffusion can still mimic a stroke. CT is often not solving the problem. So another kind of stroke mimic, this patient had a severe unilateral headache followed by weakness. Again, asymmetrical increased perfusion throughout the left cerebral hemisphere. This was a case of hemiplegic migraine. So ASL and any form of perfusion for that matter is very useful in diagnosing stroke mimics. And these are often seen in 30% of the emergencies. What about the seizures? So we'll go on to seizures particularly because ASL shows a lot of promise with respect to ictal and periictal periods. The immediate periictal period, ASL shows hyperperfusion, and subsequently the interictal period shows hypoperfusion. Any kind of asymmetrical perfusion should raise the suspicion of an underlying seizure cause. This was a patient with right focal seizures coming with the left frontal hyperperfusion. This was again a very subtle case. Patient had right MTS, but what is more interesting is there was right occipital hyperperfusion. With respect to occipital perfusion, we should understand presence of visual eye movements makes it very easy to have increased perfusion patterns in the bilateral visual eye fields. Often they are symmetrical. Any form of asymmetrical perfusion should raise the suspicion. And this patient, if you look very carefully, has got a gyral thickening and a loss of gray-white differentiation along the right posterior cingulate. So there was a small focal FCD along the right posterior parasystole. Another very recent case coming with seizures. This patient has very atypical edema on flare, gyriform restriction, few blooming, and vessel showing certain attenuation. Could it be because of a tumor? Could it be because of stroke? Perfusion clearly shows hyperperfusion. So infection and tumor become less likely now. This could be due to an underlying stroke or a vasculitis. Another case of granulomatous vasculitis with ischemia, presence of seizures can also cause paradoxical increased perfusion. Previous history of stroke can have marginal gliosis seen on ASL. When there is a lot of hemispheric abnormalities, we need to identify if the structural imaging matches that of perfusion. This particular patient has a matched perfusion pattern compared to structure. In this case, the surgeon or the clinician is aware that there is a global hypoperfusion or multifocal hypoperfusion. Whereas when you have cases where there is a mismatch, let's see this case with a porencephalonic cyst as well as a urticaria. Now we don't know whether the margins of the porencephaly or the urticaria is causing the seizures. There's a clear asymmetrical hypoperfusion in the posterior aspect of the urticaria, and this can provide a clue as to the seizure focus and confirmed on subsequent EEG. What about the patients who have a structurally normal imaging? These are again a very important subset, and they can show asymmetrical perfusion. This was a case of posterior cortical epilepsy showing occipital hypoperfusion. So we have various forms of epileptic networks also getting picked up on perfusion. Cortical seizure network connects with the thalamus at the pulvinar and with the contralateral cerebellum. And these can be picked up on perfusion as increased pulvinar hypoperfusion and contralateral cerebellar. Interictal phase is slightly more difficult to identify hypoperfusion. And we can see one particular example of a posterior cortical epilepsy arising from the left occipitally, showing asymmetrical hypoperfusion. Coming to AVMs and intracranial shunts, ASL is very useful to picking up the nidus and the draining veins. We can see the nidus, the draining veins, very clearly demonstrable along with the structural imaging. We can also look at a diffuse AVM and find out where is the actual shunting happening. We can see here there's a lot of veins along the left cerebellum, but the predominant shunting happens along the lateral aspect. We can also look at patients who have bled and pick out the dilated venous sac or the ectasia of an AV fistula, subsequently confirmed on DSA. Post-embolization is another region where ASL is extremely helpful. If we see a persisting venous signal on top with an associated increased flow on ASL, often there is a residual fistula. On the other hand, complete lack of perfusion in a patient who underwent stereotactic radiosurgery often means a radiation necrosis. The next form of AV malformations or AV shunts is the transitional DVs or developmental venous anomalies. This was a patient with recurrent focal seizures, initially diagnosed as meningitis. We can clearly see asymmetrical veins showing ASL signal, and on SW you can pick out the medusa head kind of appearance, as well as on post contrast. This was a case of atypical or a transitional developmental venous anomaly producing recurrent seizures. The next useful area in AV shunting is in the presence of a dural fistula. Patients who have CVT often develop fistulas along the dural venous sinuses. We can pick it up on MRI by looking at the TOF signal and the corresponding ASL. And in the presence of an hypertrophied ECA branches, this triad of finding asymmetrical hypertrophied ECA branches with a venous signal on TOF as well as an ASL can pick up a dural AV fistula. Why do these dural fistulas bleed? They often bleed due to cortical venous reflex, and that can also be picked up on ASL. We can have recurrent CVTs showing rebleeds, and we can see here that the patient has a chronic hematoma, a subacute kind of hematoma, as well as a lot of irregular veins here. To confirm the presence of a dural fistula, all we need is to differentiate the arterial signal, which happens in lone locations, from the venous signal, which are much more prominent because of the dilatation and more blood within the venous sacs, as well as the non-arterial location. No artery will course like this, except for a middle meningeal, even that courses at the skull base. So severe cortical venous reflex can be picked up on ASL. This was a case of a post-embolization dural fistula. Simple presence of prominent veins doesn't indicate a residual fistula. As you can see here, this patient has no signal on top. That patient in that location had no signal on ASL. But what can be picked up is asymmetrical prominence of the left SGA, the left MMA, as well as prominent cortical veins matching the cortical venous reflex on ASL. So this patient might likely have a de novo new fistula or a residual fistula at a different site. The simple presence of prominent veins is not a criteria alone for diagnosing a fistula. Numerous literature available. I'll go on to the tumors. So low-grade gliomas tend to be hypoperfused as compared to a T2 star. It's the same as ASL. High-grade gliomas tend to be hypoperfused. This was a patient with a clinical diagnosis of encephalitis, but as we can see, there are odd points including chiral thickening, small cystic spaces, and asymmetrical increased perfusion. We thought there could be an underlying glioma, and just as we wanted it, it was unfortunate for the patient. Patient was treated conservatively. After 3 months, a repeat imaging showed a gross GP. This patient eventually succumbed to it. Another patient with seizures, fever, clinical diagnosis of encephalitis, again, very thick chiral thickening, not involving the medial temporal or relative sparing of it, with increased perfusion. This is again a case of dedifferentiated glioma. What about the follow-up images? We can look at ASL as a method to differentiate radiation necrosis from a recurrent or a residual tumor. Very heterogeneous signal changes, Swiss cheese pattern of enhancement, classical radiation necrosis, but is there an element of interspersed tumor tissue? We can clearly see on both the ASL and the T2 star perfusion that there is an increased area of perfusion in the medial aspect. The rest is hypoperfused, which means this patient likely has interspersed residual tumor along with radiation necrosis. We can guide management, provide follow-ups, and provide target areas for biopsies in tumors. Lots of literature available for it, comparing the relative CBF calculated using K2 star and ASL. The last part of the lecture is mainly focusing on pediatric and miscellaneous causes. Again, AV shunts like vein of Galen. We can have a pilocytic versus pilomyxoid. A typical pilocytic is a low-grade tumor. Pilomyxoid can be a grade 2, it's often hypoperfused on ASL. And there is data to suggest that ASL can help in differentiation. Moya, we can look at cerebrovascular reactivity. A lot of gliosis, old infarcts. We can look for a vasodilatory challenge, pre and post acetazolamide, and look for an increase in CBF. Case of chronic SGH can often show perfusion changes in the underlying parenchyma. You can get a mixture of patterns. If the patient has seizures, it can be hypoperfused. It can also produce chronic cerebral ischemia and hypoperfused. You can have autoimmune encephalitis presenting with asymmetrical temporal perfusions correlated on PET imaging. You can also have superimposed double incidence, a case of cardiac arrest. But why is there an asymmetrical perfusion? So this patient had a clinically superimposed or subclinical superimposed status epilepticus and confirmed on EEG. You can also look at prognostication in case of OPC poisoning, metabolic and toxic leukoencephalopathies by looking at ASL perfusions. Presence of deep gray matter hypoperfusion often correlates with the worst prognosis. This was again a recent case which showed Pareto occipital hypoperfusion, and it was seen in hypoglycemic interval. Can have skull base osteomyelitis with pseudoaneurysm formation, and completion sakes, meningiomas, and other kinds of osteosarcomas. Coming to non-tumoral mimics, even a tuberculoma can show increased perfusion. We need to look at conventional to differentiate, probably look at MRS for leukoplakia. So coming to the last portion, the technical pitfalls. As already told, arterial transit delays, very useful for collaterals, but otherwise a nuisance for other kinds. We can get false positive signal. Always be careful. Always correlate with TOF. Look at MR angio. Look at the clinical situation before giving a diagnosis of a tubular fistula. ASL should not be done after contrast because it leads to T1 shortening and the signal gets lost. Occipital hypoperfusions has to be evaluated whether it is symmetrical or asymmetrical. Bilateral patterns are often physiological. Asymmetrical patterns are often pathological. So we can get all kinds of artifacts. We have the limitations, but it is definitely an imaging scan for future. We can look at vessel selective angiographies, give different colors, look at different vessels. We can look at dynamic angiographies. We can also go for vessel encoding and look at the contributions of different vessels in AAV. The future also has ASL as a potential role for functional lumbar studies, replacing the bold FM. Thank you.